Good. Hey guys, Shane, we're monkeying around.
Kevin, the Wonder Electrician.
And we're back. Wonder Monkey again. We've been talking about kayak camping on a budget. If you stumble upon this video, go down and hit the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you will. But hit that subscribe button and then click the little bell so you don't miss any of the notifications when we pop out a new video. Because we're talking about kayak camping, how to get started, and kind of how to do it on a budget. You wanted to do an intro. Now, we had talked about the first video in the series. We're going to try to put together several of these. We talked about kind of how to get your trip together, get an idea as to where you're going to go, what you're going to do, that kind of thing. Then the next time we talked about, okay, now we've figured out a trip, kind of where we're going. Let's go ahead and talk about what boat we're going to take. And so we kind of give you some ideas as to how to find some boats you might be interested in, do a little research, that kind of thing. And now we're going to talk a little bit about actually setting up to go. What we do, the few days to a week right before we go on a trip. What we do, how we get set, how we get prepared to push off and go down the river.
And a big part of that's going to be fine-tuning your maps. I mean, you've done your basic, found the river, found the stretch and stuff like that. Now you're going to start talking about how you start to find... Please.
Hold on. That might be Mandy.
All right, so we talked about getting your maps before, stuff like that. But now that you've found the maps, or found your river that you want to take, and you need to actually fine-tune your maps. That means going into it a little more in depth than what maybe you had before, because before you found, it's a 50-mile stretch, looks like the kind of river I want to do. Now let's commit to how to get there and stuff like that. And now it's time to find out more of, this is where I can sleep, this is where I can camp, this is where we have some stops at, this is going to be where the main, where's passing to a park at, where we're going to have, whatever kind of situation you're coming up. So it's time to get your map set up right. And to do that, you're going to need to break your long maps down into shorter maps so that you can follow. And
we went a little too much into detail.
Yeah, we went a lot into detail because that was a long trip.
That was 65 miles, and what we did was we took every 5 miles and broke it up into sections. And each 5 miles, we turned around and we highlighted specific points of interest. Places that we could stop, get out, check some things out, take a break, spend the night, that kind of thing. So,
and now I'm gonna go say we did go. I mean, we have quite a stack of maps here, but most of that trip I led the way, and you've seen from the last video why, because the boat chain was in. But we were on this trip. We didn't sport GPS at all, so. The map was how we knew where we were. So for us to be zoomed in and taking, small sections and have our 5 miles, we had a 5 mile printout, and then we had a printout of, closer shots of the key points along that 5 miles. And what that did was mean that I could kind of, I had this set of maps strapped to the, clipped onto the front of my kayak. And I would keep it set up to the main 5 mile section we were in. And then I would follow along kind of where we were. And then when I saw something that was marked on there, I could flip to it and see, yeah, that is where we are. And that way I could keep track. Because when 5 miles in, 10 miles in, 15 miles in, that part of the trip, where you're at. You're still in that first part. 30 miles in, 35 miles in, 40 miles in, things start to run together on your maps. I mean, islands start looking the same, bends in the thing start looking the same. You know, you may look at the first few miles of it and say, all right, so I got 4 right-hand turns and a left-hand turn, and then we come up to a dock. That's all good on a 5-mile trip. You start talking, you get further and further into it. You need to help yourself out a little bit more than that.
And I've said before, and I'll say it again, that I'm actually looking at a GPS to start taking, not to help find where we are, but to help tell us how fast we're going and that kind of thing. And kind of a backup maybe to the map, because I always print you a map. I always have some kind of, and you can buy them, you can print them online. We made these using the Google Earth app. And I always take some sort of map, because you never know. If you're like me, you could flip your kayak and lose your GPS. And then it's down the river. Or you could
flip your kayak and lose your maps.
Flip your kayak and lose your maps or whatever. But if you've got a map, you've always got a backup. Now, one thing that I did after this trip, we had laminated and punched holes in them. And that's good if you don't get them wet. But if you get them wet, they start to, the ink runs, they get to falling apart, and I don't care if you've laminated them or not, water seeps in through the little holes you punched in them.
These are mine. They're not wet.
Well, they got a little damp. But
a little damp, wet.
Mine were ruined. Mine were ruined. They weren't no good anymore. So I've actually bought a map case now that I'm gonna take, and I'll probably do some kind of little review on that in our gear pick of the week. But figure out some kind of a way, once you've got your trips and your boats and everything figured out, to map out where you're going, so that way you know, it's 3 o'clock and I was supposed to be at camp at 4 o'clock, but camp looks like it's a pretty good little ways down the river. That way you kind of know, I need to speed up, I can slow down, I can rest a little bit, I can take my time, or I better get to it and start paddling. And maps ain't never gonna fail you. GPS might quit working, it might die, you might lose it, something may happen, but your map is not gonna fail you. So have some kind of a backup plan. And usually before we get ready to go, one of the things we do is we're packing up our gear, is we start printing out the maps and getting them ready for whatever trip we are doing. I think the only trip that we haven't took maps on was the Yadkin River trips, because we've done the Yadkin River so much, we basically know kind of where we are all the way around. So,
all right. So once you get your maps done, then you're going to want to go back in there and make you some notes on there. So what I did was I went through there, mile by mile, looking at it close on the Zoom, and I'm actually making notes to where we would want to camp at, where we could possibly camp at, where the New River State Park was at, because we passed through it several times. Places where we could camp, and we marked where the parks were at, where boat landings were at, things that weren't just already highlighted on there. I went back into details and I found, if you haven't camped, I've got places on here where if you haven't camped by this point, then you're not camping for another 2 or 3 miles. So that means that, you need to look and see what time of day it was when you got there. If you're at this spot and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you better stop. If you're at this spot and it's 3, you can probably make it on further. So that's, my take of how to actually do it. So then what I did was go through and, this is a lot of research. This is a lot of trouble to go through this. But what I did was actually go back through, and while I was making those notes, because, sometimes you do things on one that you just got a little quick notation on a map, it might not make a whole lot of sense to you. So what I actually did was go back through and made notes, so I could kind of follow along. I've got 10 miles in, it's followed by this. So in case for some reason I couldn't find myself on that map, I could on this. Plus that meant that I didn't necessarily have to refer to the map. If I kept this cheat sheet on the top of my kayak too, I would know what to look for next. What I had thought by looking at the maps would be, things that were of importance. So make yourself some notes. I mean, it doesn't take a little bit of time. You want to do the research. Don't just, don't find the river and say, oh, whatever it is what it is. It will be what it is. But the problem is, are you prepared for what it is? So
put you together something, a little map, and
laminators are cheap.
Yeah. Get you an eliminator, get you a map case, whatever fits your budget, whatever you like. And then you got a little backup plan to anything else that could go wrong. Yeah. Check us out. We're both on Facebook, Monkeying Around, the Wonder Electrician. Go subscribe to our other channels if you will. If you like the videos, subscribe to this, give us a thumbs up,
Give it a share.
and leave us a comment. If you got a question about how we do anything particular, ask the question. We try to get back to every comment at least within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So leave us a comment, and we'll respond to you, and at least give you some kind of idea as to what we're thinking.
We ain't pros,
No, this is just our opinion.
Yeah, I'm sure there's someone that has very expensive equipment to do this way better than we do.
But we're trying to be able to get it done on a budget and still
and help you people that are getting started into it. If you've never took a river trip before, you sure don't want to go out and dump $500 in the software and GPSs and things like that to make yourself a map.
And if you're in North Carolina, hook up with us. Come paddle with us. Yeah. We all the time. We've actually had in the past couple of weeks some folks contact us and say, "Hey, I want to come paddle." All right, cool. Let's set it up and make it happen. We'll go paddle with you, and we'll help you out as best we can because we ain't professionals, but we're just having fun. So, like and subscribe. Monkeying Around, the Wonder Electrician. Go get your paddles wet.
Check it out next time.